newspaper, New Zealand Herald or Dominion Post, or any other daily or weekly newspapers seeking information from their classified advertisements, the first thing for us to do, I gather, is to go to their index page or pages. Online media such as TradeMe publishes such an index on its homepage. Surprisingly, there is no such official index to our laws, despite there are over 1,100 acts. As I said earlier, without looking at those index page or pages, we would be looking for a needle in a haystack. There are over 1,100 acts, and some of them are 100 years old, written in old-fashioned English full of legal jargon. This is the first aspect the legislation bill is seeking to address. The second aspect is that many acts have been amended and patched up over many years. They contain, may I borrow Sir Geoffrey Palmer's language, they contain some dead wood and should be removed. This bill attempts to modernize and improve the law relating to the publication, availability, reprinting, revision, and official versions of legislation, and to bring the law together in a single piece of legislation. The bill implements aspects of the government response to recommendations made in the reports of the Law Commission entitled Presentation of New Zealand Statute Law and Review of the Statutes Drafting and Compilation Act 1920. Mr. Speaker, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Sir Geoffrey Palmer and the Law Commission for presenting such comprehensive reports which contain recommendations to make statute law easier to access and to make measurable progress in updating the statute book. Those reports were written in conjunction with Parliamentary Council Office, and I congratulate PCO on such a great initiative. There are at least 4 issues with our statute books. The first one is there are acts on the statute books that are totally obsolete. Sir Geoffrey cited 2 examples, District Railways Purchasing Act 1885 and the New Zealand Institute of Journalists Act 1895. As a lawyer turned MP, I think it is not shameful for me to admit that I have never heard about those 2 acts. The second problem is, let me borrow Sir Geoffrey Palmer's language again. New Zealand statutory law is in a chaotic state. There is no obvious order or logic about our statute books. The law on one topic can be sketched over several acts. There is a rule, for instance, that contracts to sell books to be delivered in the future must be in writing and it must contain the total price in red print. It is hidden in an act called the Mercantile Law Act 1908, the last place anyone would think to look for it. Thirdly, there have been changes in drafting styles over the years. Therefore, it is sometimes very difficult to understand it purely from a linguistic perspective. And the old and a new style together can make matters even more untidy and inconsistent. And fourthly, with redundant and obsolete provisions remaining in force, there are inconsistencies between acts which may give rise to difficult questions of interpretation. PCO identified 2 options in its regulatory impact statement. Option 1 is by way of legislative changes that PCO is required to have revision program and statutory fast-tracking procedure for enacting revision bills. Under this option, the PCO would be duty-bound to undertake a triennial program of statute law revision, the content of which would be settled by Cabinet. The PCO would thus have statutory powers to alter the wording, order and placement of the provisions subject to revision. As the regulatory impact statement explains, when the revision bill had been drafted, it would be submitted to a committee comprising the Chief Parliamentary Counsel, the Solicitor General, the President of the Law Commission, and a retired judge. The committee's job is to certify the bill in question if the committee was satisfied that it changed only the presentation of the law, not its effect. I look forward to submissions and deliberation on this particular point. In particular, I'll be interested in knowing more details as to how the committee is meant to function and how its members are appointed. There are risks associated with this option as correctly identified by the PCO. However, as proposed by the Law Commission, it would be more consistent with current constitutional understandings to achieve the changes to parliamentary procedure by amendments to standing orders rather than by legislative changes, because this would ensure that the changes have unanimous or near unanimous support from all or most parliamentary parties. Under option 2, a general reference to undertaking revision could be included in the PCO's statutory functions. The risk of this option is that without any statutory obligation to carry out revision, the role for PCA to play may be too passive. The preferred option is to have statutory provision for a revision program, a duty for the PCO to draft a revision and to submit them to a satisfying committee. And the parliamentary procedure for the passage of revision bills are to be set out in standing orders instead. So Labour supports this bill to select committee. At select committee, we will look closely at the regulations disallowance changes proposed in the bill, as explained by the Honourable Marion Strait, who spoke earlier, that we have some concerns about the impact of the changes we have on the work of the Regulations Review Committee, given their mandate is determined by the standing orders definition of a regulation, which will have to be changed as a result of this legislation. And with respect to Clause 25, I share the concerns expressed by the Honourable David Parker, who spoke on this bill last week. Further, I note former Leader of the House and Attorney General, the Honourable Dr. Michael Cullen, strongly believed the PCO should report to the Leader of the House and not to the Attorney General. This bill continues the practice of the PCO reporting to the Attorney General, but we might want to take the chance at a select committee to reconsider this practice. The Law Commission consulted widely during the preparations of its reports. I thank those stakeholders involved and thank the PCO for their commitments and their wonderful work to take the bill to the current status. This bill contains a lot of sensible provisions, but it will require careful consideration by Parliament because it deals with important constitutional matters. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.